just spent the past 50 hours inside the most radioactive place on the planet.
5.4.
Whoa, that's really high, no?
This is 10 times higher than normal, and it will remain like so bad for thousands of years.
Home to the largest nuclear disaster in human history, and one that could have made a large portion of Europe completely uninhabitable, the exclusion zone of Chernobyl. I stayed inside the only hotel within the zone and got to meet one of the liquidators of Chernobyl. So you called in after the accident happened?
Yeah, sure. Chernobyl really made me a different personality.
As well as one of the last remaining resettlers who decided to illegally move back into her home within Chernobyl only a year after the disaster. How did she make the decision to come back?
Родина.
Motherland.
I'm excited to take you along with me on this eye-opening journey and hear some of the stories directly from those whose lives were changed by this event forever. All right, we have officially landed in Ukraine. Holy crap, it's cold. For our trip, we're joined by my friend and cinematographer Corey.
It's not a good sign when you walk out of the airport and you see your own breath.
There you are.
All right, you fucking made it, you guys.
A friend of ours, Yuri, who's in fact the first-born Russian to have joined the US Navy and who's been to Chernobyl before.
Let's go.
You were right, it's pretty cold.
And of course, our legendary driver who doesn't speak much English, Sergey.
Hello, how you doing?
All right, waking up at 6:45 tomorrow, heading to Chernobyl.
It's cold.
There has been an accident at the Chernobyl atomic power station.
One of the worst disasters in the history of nuclear power.
300,000 people were permanently evacuated from the area.
This place is just so radioactive, it's uninhabitable.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Doing good. How you doing, man? Nice to meet you, man.
How are you?
Good.
Just 5 more minutes. I will just print like permit papers, sign in, like police guards will check your passports, and then we will go.
That's great. Yeah, of course. Yeah, nice to see you too.
Wow, I was not expecting our guide to be that jolly and excited. What is
So
this?
these are your individual body counters. You just put them on your necks and carry on you all day long. This device records exposure, radiation exposure dose that you get during your stay on the territory of Chernobyl exclusion zone.
So where are we heading now?
We're heading to the ghost town of Pripyat, the place where nobody lives since April 27th, 1986. They were just told to take documents and the most necessary things with them, as they were told that evacuation would last only 3 days.
We have officially arrived at the Pripyat ghost town, which is the main city that was completely evacuated.
I don't remember exactly what it's gonna be. Look, 9.
11.
Wow, because
So they washed the town 3 times. After evacuation, yeah, they removed some 10-15 centimeters of topsoil throughout the whole town, but still there are some places where readings are...
So this whole place, I mean, is permanently uninhabitable, basically, forever.
And in the next like 40 or 50 years, all these buildings, they will just fall apart and
They're gonna
it's
fall
gone.
apart.
Yeah, eventually, yes. So this very moment we're looking at the local hospital of Pripyat town, where they brought first victims of the Chernobyl disaster at the night of the accident, like firefighters, employees of the control room, and later on 28 of them, the state of whose was the worst, like they were taken from here to Moscow to that specialized clinic where they pretty much died within like first 2 weeks because of the extremely high doses of radiation that they obtained. Very scary and sad place, to be honest.
So I'm guessing there's one of the places also most contaminated, right?
Yeah, at the basement of the hospital there are still all those like firefighters' uniforms, gloves, helmets, which are like extremely contaminated.
It's just so quiet that you hear like little squeaks of the window blowing in the wind, and like even that sounded like a little crack. It's freaky as fuck.
Very, very eerie, strange feeling. It's quiet to the point where you start to like hear your own brain in a weird way. It's just so dead silent. "50,000 people used to live in the city. Average age was 26 years old. So sad." A lot of these buildings are completely starting to fall apart. This is the school. A few years ago, it literally just crumbled. You see?
Just all the books. They're just like left here.
I think what makes Chernobyl also so interesting is that it's kind of like a time capsule for the Soviet Union. All of this stuff is just left here. You're able to come see these propaganda posters and the way that the schools looked and the architecture of the murals and all of that stuff, and it really does make it feel like a living museum at this point. This town was actually incredibly modern. Modern cafes, mosaics, amusement park. There was a lot of facilities that just didn't really exist anywhere else. We are about to leave the ghost town of Pripyat, and I had a moment to stand out here alone, staring through some of the windows and making me very emotional, thinking about what could have been. And through the windows you can see some of the furniture still left behind and windows half open. I don't cry very easily, but there's just something about this place, just being here feels very heavy.
At this point in the trip, I'll admit that I was feeling quite overwhelmed. Overwhelmed by the loss, the sadness, and the forgotten dreams that this place radiates. Our guide told us, however, that although most of the exclusion zone is abandoned, that there are a handful of people that moved back into the zone despite the authorities trying to get them to leave. And so, on these extremely snowy roads on the outskirts of the zone, we went searching for one of them.
We are on our way to try to meet some babushkas, some grandmas that decided to move back into the exclusion zone a year or so after the incident. Had a lot of problems with the authorities for a long time, but then over time the authorities just let them stay.
The well, where it gets water, wow, it's completely frozen.
Come on in. Oh.
Please, come in, guys. Come in, come in. Let me introduce you Grandma Hanya. She's one of the most famous self-settlers in the whole Chernobyl exclusion zone. Бо, яка біда! She wants to cook some вареники for you.
So she's insisting on feeding us. This is the paper she uses to light her fire. It's from 1990. It's an old Soviet newspaper. Was she born and raised here?
Born here, directly here, in the village.
How long was she gone when they made people leave?
So she stayed outside, after evacuation. They stayed over winter at the new place, and next spring they returned.
Wow. So she was one of the first people to come back?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. Хорошо?
Да.
Хорошо? Домовились?
Домой.
And how many people came back?
В цьому році.
Повернулося, синок мій.
She says 13 people.
13 people?
13 people.
Of her settlement came back.
Returned to this village, yeah.
Out of how many?
Знаєте ж, Олексіївна?
400 or 500.
Нас виселяли через 6 днів в Чорнобилі.
So they were evacuated 6 days after disaster took place. Yeah, they were planting potatoes at that moment, and then the chairman of the village council came to them and said, you need to leave for 3 days. We will just take you away for 3 days. And she said that those people who never returned to their native villages, they passed away. Scientists say that's another psychological effect of the Chernobyl disaster.
How did she make the decision to come back? Because
Бабгань, а чому ви вирішили повернутися сюди?
Родина.
Motherland, that's her land.
Незамінний чоловік і незамінима матка.
She plants potatoes all her life. Even 35 years after the disaster, she's still here. She eats the things that she grows on the garden, she drinks water from well, and she's 88 years old.
what is she saying?
She wants to cook something for you. You know, that's how the grannies are. That's how pure they are. When we come, young generation, for her, we're all her grandkids. So, and her duty, let's say, in the life is just to cook something, just to feed us all the time.
That's what Earth
Yeah. Look at her, she's amazing. Не, перестаньте, не надо, не. Please, don't move.
Буду бачити.
Is this stuff she makes?
Yeah.
Pure, best ever vodka you can try.
Babushka moonshine.
Babushka moonshine.
Слава Богу. Хай вчора ще хоч випити.
Wait, what
Come on. She's saying one more shot for the road.
Ідіть же, Міша, а ти їдеш? На здоров'я.
На здоров'я.
Приїжджайте, горілочку будемо гнати. Баба сама жене.
Бабушка moonshine.
На, остановіть, на.
Сильно не накривайте, не надо.
А воно ж мені не треба, я в паві кидаю.
Хочуть з вами поговорити. She wants you to finish the bottle and to finish all the food that she put on the table for you. But it's impossible.
І вам спасибо.
Oh my god.
Бережіть себе.
Бережіть
себе.
You just did moonshine shots. Homemade from a babushka in the middle of Ukraine, Chernobyl. I'm in love, I think.
Well, that was really special. Thank you so much for taking us, Misha.
You're welcome.
She's really
lovely. At this very moment, we're pretty close to the site of Chernobyl nuclear power station. Come with me, please. I'll show you. 5.4. So now it's 10 times normal.
This is 10 times higher than normal.
Yeah.
Are you never worried about your own safety?
I'm worried, always worried. But yeah, I told you, if you follow the rules, simple rules, if you don't spend too much time at the highly contaminated place, everything will be fine.
What's the highest you've ever captured?
Now we've just measured 3 and I measured 20,000.
Where was that?
It's a secret place. I will not tell you that.
You're saying that it was this is highly contaminated,
this is
and
highly
this was 3. And he registered 20,000.
But I'm still alive. Look, after 10 years, I'm still okay. Yeah, I start glowing at night when I drink too much vodka, but that's fine. Yeah, we can just stop over here.
And so what we're seeing right there,
That's the one that exploded?
That's the structure that covers the exploded reactor.
Holy shit. I just didn't realize we were here. This is it. That's it.
Yeah, that's where we are.
So on the inside, there's still a bunch of, like a lot of extremely highly radioactive,
radioactive materials. Yes.
And they need to take their time to make sure that they're dismantling it safely.
Yeah, they need to do it in a
How long do they think it's going to take?
It's hard to say.
Like literally right there is where it all went down. And you said we're gonna get closer too, huh? Love that for us. This is fucking crazy. Right? Like legit right there. How far?
300 meters.
Yeah. From where it all went down.
Yeah, it's only 1 point something. In 1986, I think radiation levels here were like maybe 1 million times higher, but not these days. Like they cleaned all this site, they removed like soil from over here, they brought new one, they built all these new roads, everything. And like the Geiger counter right now just detects those gamma rays that come out like through the walls, through everything through here.
But this steel building that they build around it, they estimate is going to last between 70 and 100 years. And after that, they're going to have to figure out a new solution. And they've spent 2.1 billion euros doing this. It's far from over.
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing, is like, oh, Chernobyl, you know, in the history books, 1986, okay. No, it's still here.
Yeah. My grandpa was one of those liquidators who were involved in cleaning this site immediately after the accident. So he was working on a tractor and like removing like highly contaminated soil around the power station. And my grandma, she still keeps all the documents that his death was directly linked to high doses of radiation that he obtained over here.
And he died at what age?
39.
39.
39.
Well, your grandpa was very brave. There's a lot of people that lost their lives coming to make this place decontaminated and
there
safe
are
again.
Thousands, I think maybe 100,000 of people who died because of the air.
In the afternoon of our second day, we had a chance to sit down with one of the surviving liquidators of the Chernobyl disaster and hear how this impossible task changed his life to this day.
Back in 1986, I was civil chemist doing my civil job, but in the Soviet Union all healthy males have to undergo mandatory military training.
So were you called in after the accident happened?
Yeah, sure. Nobody could imagine what's happening here. You know, explosion of a nuclear reactor was considered impossible at that time. You know, and so it was expected that it was some minor, you know, explosion with some minor leak. And it took, let's say, 1 day to realize that it's necessary to move the citizens of the town of Pripyat. They were able to evacuate a town with 50,000 population 36 hours after the explosion. And it was on Saturday and Sunday. It's incredible logistic achievement. In terms of social health and psychological health, you know, Chernobyl was a real disaster for the liquidators. I did have, you know, PTSD, as many veterans have.
So these trucks were among the many that we used to clean up after the mess of Chernobyl. And these trucks now have just been washed over and over and over, and they're now just standing here, rusting. Because there's a sign on all of these trucks saying that these are not allowed to leave the 10-kilometer exclusion zone.
And I realized that the way of memorialization of the event, it matters for the health state of the Chernobyl liquidators. Because the present situation, when it said, wow, the Chernobyl mitigation was a total fail and nothing was done, meaning that they all are just stupid idiots which failed to mitigate this accident. But I am to tell you that, well, yesterday I was driving at the Red Forest, and the levels here was 1,000 times smaller, comparing to what I in person measured back in 1906. 1,000 times. It's a huge achievement of mitigation.
So how long were you here when you...
35 days and nights. And I'm saying days and nights because my job was round the clock one.
What do you want people to know about Chernobyl? What do you want people to take away
Chernobyl is a story of survival, of overcoming, of painful learning and, prospects for a new life. Chernobyl really made me a different personality. It made me stronger, more responsible, more humane in a way. Sometimes it's quite good to have in your biography something which you cannot fail. It supports you. I did good job in Chernobyl. It's impossible that I cannot handle this particular task, and you do it.
So you feel like it gave you a sense of confidence and self-respect?
Of course.
In regards of any other task in your life?
Yeah, of course.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Мы с вами будем общаться. Мне очень приятно. Мы на одной волне.
Thank you so much.
It was my real pleasure, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a good one.
We're going in to get checked for radiation to see if we picked up anything.
Good.
I'm clean?
Yeah.
Good? Good. Radiation free?
It was a pleasure.
It's a pleasure, man.
Take care.
Give you a hug.
All the best.
Well, we're done with Chernobyl. Time to exit the exclusion zone. It's impossible to accurately measure the impact that the Chernobyl disaster truly had. It's also hard to tell how long this reactor is going to stay a problem and a concern for the area. But what we do know is that this disaster drastically changed the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people. Many never recovered from its health and psychological consequences, but a few strong-minded individuals decided to not let this life-altering event take control of their story for the worse. And so, although I arrived feeling mostly devastated to see the scale of the consequences, I felt inspired to hear the brave stories of those who survived it. I gained a renewed perspective of the problems in my own life and learned that even in the darkest of places, in the darkest of times, that courage, seeking a positive perspective, and keeping our head high can be a choice. One can only hope that this event reminds us of how fragile everything is around us. How easily human error can have such drastic and dangerous consequences. We only have one planet, and we only have each other. And so, I hope that we'll take care of both. We'll see you next week.